Currently, the federal poverty line is an annual income of $20,000 for a family of four, and around 15 million children in the United States live under that line. Because of this, they live in high poverty areas and do not have access to quality education. Many schools in impoverished areas are under-resourced and struggle to meet learning requirements, leaving those students behind others in higher income areas. The schools they have to go to are underfunded and pushed aside for private and charter schools, as well as public schools in affluent neighborhoods.
Some of the problems that I see some of my students face in school is academic success. I see them facing problems with their everyday lifestyle, such as living, food, how they're going to be able to get food, of course, homework. A lot of my students go home and they're not sure if they'll be able to eat dinner for that night, or they're not sure if their parents will be home, and if their parents are home, they don't get home until 11 o'clock, very late at night, because they have to work 2 and 3 jobs just to keep a roof over their head, So it is certainly hard for them. And also what we see in a lot of poverty-based homes are bigger families. So the families are no less than 4 students or 4 kids when you still have to worry about a parent. And majority of them, are, of course, are single families. So you figure if you have the mom working 2 jobs to support 4 kids, she's not going to get home until late. And so that means the oldest one would have to kind of take care of the younger ones.
Because of inadequate education, low-income children find it hard to break the cycle of poverty. These children are also at greater risk for behavioral and emotional issues such as aggression and depression. The exposure to violence and drugs in the neighborhoods the children live in makes them more likely to fall prey to injuries, death, and incarceration.
So it is kind of difficult because we have a lot of those students that at that age, when you're in kindergarten, first grade, second grade, third grade, you don't know how to come out of that survival mode. So you feel like they can't distinguish the difference between when they're safe and when they need to be in survival mode. So it's pretty difficult to continue to teach a student who is constantly in survival mode.
Teachers also fail in the system, as most of them are not trained in how to handle or survive a school year with the little resources that are available at these schools. Most new teachers are put into programs where this is their first interaction with low-income students, and they are unable to handle the effects of growing up poor and instilling structure into kids that have never had it otherwise. The teacher is not able to address the needs of the majority of their students, which causes them to quit teaching early in their careers.
A school is dependent upon the foundation that's laid at home. If there's no foundation laid at home, and no fault to the parents because they have to make a means for their kids, but if there's no foundation laid at home, then students come to school already lacking in that sense because they don't have those foundational skills that the average 6, 7, 8, 9, 10-year-old has. My students don't necessarily have the knowledge of trains of how to act when you're at a museum, when you're going to a gallery, when you're going into public settings. They act just as if they're at home. And if there's nothing set at home, then they act what others would be considered unruly. But it's just because they haven't been taught. And I can't say that it's all of my students, but those students that are usually like right at that poverty level haven't been taught because of a number of things. And so when an average adult sees that kid, they want to label that kid with ADHD or emotionally disturbed. And a lot of people don't feel like that has a big effect on the brain, but that's considered a traumatic situation. And when you have a traumatic situation, your brain works in different ways. And so when I look at my students, I see the full potential. I just know that they need to be taught different things. But when others look at them, they view them completely different. They view them as someone that, I can see them going to jail later on in life because he's acting unruly. But it's not that he's acting unruly. It's just that your child had the opportunity to see how you're supposed to act in public. Well, these students do not necessarily see that.
Oftentimes, students are suspended, expelled, or arrested for minor offenses, sending them back to the place that is causing all of the anger and unhappiness, their homes. This causes them to run the streets and get into more trouble because they can't go to school and don't want to be home. More than 3 million students were suspended in 2010, and more than 250,000 were referred to police for misdemeanors that would previously be handled with a scolding. This is a problem that is plaguing schools nationwide, called the school-to-prison pipeline.
The school-to-prison pipeline, of course, states that if a student is not on grade level by the time, or studies have shown that if they're not on grade level by the time they're in third grade, then there's a prison bed waiting for them. And I certainly see that because the graduation rate drastically decreases if they're not able to read, because they don't feel like they can pay attention in school. You don't pay attention in school, you don't get the grades, and it becomes a domino effect from there. And then when you don't have the grades, you don't graduate. When you don't graduate, you can't get a job that will sustain you for life, especially with the cost of living today. So you can't sustain your life, then you got to make a means. And like I was saying earlier, a lot of these students are already in survival mode. They're still at 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9 years old. That's the lifestyle that they already know. That's the lifestyle that they only know. And so then you go to jail, and the bed is right there waiting for you.
This is dangerous because the future of these students are already being determined for them before they hit puberty. With each new administration, we hope we can get a little closer to alleviating this problem. But with the new head of education, Betsy DeVoe, it seems we're getting further behind.
With the new administration and everyone that's now been put into place, I feel that as teachers, we're going to be limited because of the funds that they're talking about cutting and taking that money and put it in other places. We already have larger class sizes. My classroom is about 28 students at any given moment. So if they cut those funds, or the educational funds that we so need, those classes are going to get so much larger. If they get larger, then I'm going to have less time to reach each individual student to reach their need. So in my opinion, I don't feel that cutting from education will certainly be the best route for this administration.
So what can be done about this issue? Well, a solution to this problem can be having highly qualified teachers in these schools that are willing to connect with the students and has a passion for making a difference and teaching. After school and summer programs also help tremendously in keeping kids focused and off of the streets. Temple University student Erica Mitchell went through one of these programs and now works with them to help other students reach their full potential as well.
Upward Bound is a college prep program for high school students. The program is leaned towards students of low-income background and who typically are the first generation to go to college in their family. The program offers college tours, personal empowerment sessions that deal with study skills, how to deal with difficult people, and even things like getting an internship and certain things within the job field that they won't necessarily learn in college, that they'll have to experience, but they're getting the experience now. We do college tours, usually about twice a semester, and we go on a college summer tour at the end of the summer. We usually try to get the students to expose to different schools, whether it be an urban area, suburban area, out of the Philadelphia area generally, because a lot of the students are more subjected to going to schools within the state, and we just try to get them out of the area.
Other programs like Upward Bound are Gear Up and Avid. These programs begin in elementary school and prepare students to go to and stay in college. But more importantly, the most efficient long-term help would be for the government to stop cutting funding for education and put more money into it so that it is possible for schools in high poverty areas to have the resources they need to properly educate.